So today, from fatigue to fabulous, and it's really informal today. If you have questions, put your hand up or just, look at me with that look like, I got a question or I got a comment I'd like to add. Because this is really your time. I'm here just as a coach and a teacher and a guide, and I'm here to be of service to you folks, to you ladies. So this is your hour. All right, so adrenal health. We have, in my opinion, a chronic issue with fatigue in this country. Yeah. And that's, I think, why Starbucks does so well. Now, I like a good Starbucks too. However, there's something going on. So what we're going to do today is kind of dive into that. So first, of course, the disclaimer. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't diagnose. I don't treat. Vitamins and your herbs and homeopathics don't cure disease. But I am your teacher and your coach, and I'm here to help. So there you go. All right. So I have some testimonials here. I've been in practice over 10 years now. I have actually a long list of testimonials for folks that want to participate in natural health, and they want to take that route. For one, there's more ownership on your end, of course, and it takes a little bit more time. However, in my opinion, the long-term benefits outweigh that. So folks that have great experiences are the ones that I have found are committed, and they're just ready. I'm going to change my life, and I don't expect someone to change their life overnight. It's part of a process. You can't expect a third grader to do algebra, and so and that's where I come in to help guide you and bring you along. So there's a few testimonials. I've had some great success. And they always say put a bad picture of you in. So I'm like, oh my gosh. All right. So here. And I was a pretty young woman there, 36. And this was after the birth of our fourth child, where I went very severe hypothyroid. This is an adrenal talk, but your adrenals and your thyroid, they run together. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But anyway, I was on vacation here. I'd even dropped a little bit of weight to go on vacation. And what I realized is I was really, really good at avoiding the camera during this phase of my life. So there weren't many pictures. All right, now this was a little over a year ago. This was spring break with my son. We were down in the Bahamas, and now I'm 51. I was 49 there. So this is what natural health can do. Like I said, I'm 51, no meds, none of that stuff. And, we're pretty healthy, my husband and I and our kids. And, kind of in love and life over here. So that's why I said my life is really pretty blessed. It hasn't always been. I'll touch a little on that, but not too much here. Okay, so the endocrine system. Now, with the endocrine system, your adrenals are part of that. Your thyroid, your pituitary, your ovaries, pancreas. So these glands all work together. And I think this is kind of a nice slide because you start to see where your parts are, because people get confused and they get afraid. And I think just a little anatomy 101 is kind of helpful. So this is your endocrine system with your hypothalamus, pituitary in the center of your brain. Now your hypothalamus and pituitary, they communicate together too. Your hypothalamus is part of the endocrine system, and it's also part of the limbic system, which is your emotional body. They're going to bark occasionally. They want to come play, so we'll just sorry, babies. So when you're under stress, your hypothalamus really takes a hit, because when that emotional stress comes in, your hypothalamus, being part of the limbic system, has to go into action. And then it has to turn around and communicate with your pituitary and say, hey, we're under stress right now. Something's going on. And so with prolonged emotional stress or prolonged emotional hardships, the hypothalamus takes a hit. So sometimes we hear about the pituitary. Has anyone heard about the pituitary? You hear about the HPA axis, or you hear about the pituitary. And so the pituitary is kind of like the CEO. Your pituitary will send a signal to your adrenals or your thyroid. Has anyone ever had a thyroid blood test where they test your TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone? That's a pituitary hormone. So if TSH is a high number, that means you're low thyroid, because your pituitary is sending a strong signal, kind of shouting to the thyroid, saying, hey, get to work. And then the thyroid will oblige or not. So anyway, the hypothalamus is really important when we're looking at adrenal fatigue and adrenal issues and stress. So I sometimes offer hypothalamus support. All right, so this is an interplay of the endocrine system. We won't really sit long on this slide. However, what we want to know or observe is that all the glands talk together. So if one gland is weak, another one's going to be weak, or it's going to try to pick up the slack. So over time, let's say you've had a lot of stress, emotional stress, or like with inflammation and pain in the body, that's also a stressor in the body. So over time, either emotional stress, and that can just be thinking about it. Thinking about that picture 5-10 years ago that was painful. And all of a sudden, you're back in the war zone, so to speak, chemically speaking. Because, you can think about something, and all of a sudden you get a little worked up inside. You feel it, right? We've all been there. So even thinking about that old stress takes you to a stressful place biochemically. So we want to make sure you keep our thoughts right, too. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But anyway, let's say you have prolonged stress. That's an adrenal issue. So when the adrenals get weak, our body intuitively knows that's really dangerous. And we don't live without our adrenals. So the body says, hey, we're just going to slow the whole motor down here because this is dangerous. We're getting in a red zone here. So how could the body slow the motor down? Less thyroid hormone. So sometimes the body says, thyroid, we got to calm everyone down. The adrenals are freaking out, right? And so then it looks like we're hypo or low thyroid, when actually we're not. It was an adrenal issue. Or vice versa. If there's an adrenal issue, there's a thyroid issue. They're always, you don't escape one without the other. So anyway, they all communicate together. So when I'm working with someone, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the different glands. Those of you that I've tested, I look at I'm going to look at your adrenal gland with my testing equipment, which I have a slide on that too. Okay, so your adrenal glands are known as your stress glands, and they sit right on top of your kidneys, like Meredith knew. So, and so what's going to happen if your kidneys are struggling? Glands are together. In Eastern medicine, they refer to your adrenal kidney kind of as one thing. They don't separate the two. We do here, but the adrenals and the kidneys really work together. And so if the adrenals are stressed, it's going to have an effect on the kidneys and vice versa. So anyway, we kind of took a look at that. But I want to point this out. So has anyone ever had prednisone? I have. Anyone ever had steroids? I have. I had steroid shots for my allergies for years, which they later found caused like cardiac arrest. So that was, but I didn't know. And so anyway, how quick do steroids work? Typically pretty darn quick, don't they? Well, prednisone it's almost identical to cortisol, your adrenal hormones. So if those drugs work, that's a good sign that there's an adrenal insufficiency or the adrenals are weak because the adrenals couldn't keep up. They couldn't do what was necessary or the stressors were too big for the body. So that's something that I look at. All right, so how do they work? Since we're talking about the adrenals. Okay, you got the stress comes into the body. You got your hypothalamus in the center of your brain, talks to your pituitary by releasing a hormone, which then in turn, your pituitary sends a signal to your adrenals. Pretty simple. So you have the medulla, the middle of your adrenals, epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline, fight or flight, ready to go. And the outer part, the cortex, like cortisol, DHEA, more of these sex vitality hormones. And cortisol should be high in the morning and then gradually diminish as the day goes on. So we should have higher cortisol when we wake up because it gets us going. And then cortisol also is a fat storage hormone, which we'll kind of look at that. So excess cortisol is not good, but we need it high in the morning and low at the end of the day. And so what happens if we're under a lot of prolonged stress? We're in fight or flight, what's going to happen? The adrenals are going to send all their energy to the creation of those stress hormones. So what's left over for the sex are the vitality hormones, the estrogens, progesterones, DHEA? Nothing. Or very, very little, because the body has to choose where to make the hormones. So do you have to deal with the stressor to live? The body's going to say yes. Do you have to make the sex and vitality hormones to live at that moment? No. So I have a lot of folks that will come to me and they have low libido or their hormones are off and they're living a life where there's a lot of stress. it's going to be really hard to get them well and to get their goals met unless they change their lifestyle too. So that's important to recognize. You know, we can take all the best remedies in the world and have the best diet and all that good stuff for the physical body, but if we're not addressing our emotional body, it's like the assault never stops and we're never going to get well. And so that's part of wellness is, you know, healthy mind, healthy emotions, and creating your life so you're in a place that that can happen. One little tip on that note, before you go to bed, like the 10 minutes before you go to bed, this is a great time to program your brain, to program your self-conscious. Those 10 minutes, whatever you're exposed to, your subconscious is going to run through that, play that over and over in a loop for like the next 5 to 6 hours. So I would say do not watch the evening news. There is really nothing of value there, in my opinion, as far as nourishing your emotional being. Because very seldom do they have a feel-good story. And there's a lot of good things going on in the world. There's a lot of bad things too, but there's always a lot of good things. And if we can put our energy there, and this kind of goes beyond the scope of this talk, this would be more of a consciousness talk or talk on spirituality, but we have the power to engage in one thought process or another. And it's kind of like when you walk into a room, you know if it's happy or sad. So we can contribute to, you know, goodness in life. And that was 10 minutes before bed. You know, watch something healthy, or better yet, read something healthy that's going to, you know, support, you know, those next 5 or 6 hours. Because most of our behavior, like 95% of our behavior, comes from our subconscious. So, and we can, and here's something. I share this with my patients sometimes. Today you drove here, most of you, it was a new trip here today. Now, let's say you've been here 20 times. Would you go on autopilot on the way here then, if you've been here a lot? Because like, oh, so who's driving your car then? If you go into a destination, you forget how you got there. Your subconscious. How many times have we all done that? You drive, you get in your car, you know, 3,000-pound vehicle, right? And you end up at your destination, and you're like, whoa, I don't even remember the trip. It's because you checked out, because your subconscious says, I got it. And the car next to you is doing it, the car behind you. I mean, it's a wonder that we don't have more accidents. But that's how powerful our subconscious is. So we really want to change that programming in those 10 minutes before bed. It's just a great, great thing to do. So, all right. So how do we make the hormones? We talked a little bit about the glands that send the signals. Like your adrenal gland is going to make DHEA, cortisol, you know, the sex hormones, adrenaline. So, but what does it need to make that? Well, the building block for all our hormones, the mother of all hormones, is cholesterol. And so from cholesterol, your body makes pregnenolone, which we like to refer to as a mother hormone. And then from there, DHEA and the other hormones. But all pathways actually eventually lead to estrogen in the body, which is side note there. But what happens if your cholesterol gets too low? How are you going to make everything? Now, has anyone observed? We've had statins around for quite a while now. So first we had our statins, right? Then we had the blue pill, right? This is in part one. This is not just me talking. Weston Price Foundation there's a lot of research on that page. It's Weston A. Price. But they do a lot. I'm a clinician. I'm not in the lab studying. I'm with you guys. So, but there's a lot of research that studies this and shows the mechanism, the biochemistry behind this. So we have to have healthy levels of cholesterol. So we don't want to just artificially lower it because we need it for certain things. So anyway, now progesterone, very important hormone, especially for women, especially if you're cycling, right? Because when we have our menstrual cycle, if there's cramping or something going on, quite often that's a magnesium deficiency. Now magnesium is needed to make your progesterone. It's a building block of progesterone. So anyone ever have heavy cramping or that restless leg? I've had both in my life. That restless leg, that's a good sign that low progesterone. And that heavy period, low progesterone. So then to make the progesterone, first we have to have the signal, right? We have to have healthy ovaries that make the progesterone, and we have to have magnesium. So it's kind of fun, isn't it? When you start looking at how the body works, it's not like, all right, so here's our adrenal hormones. We've talked about them. Cortisol, aldosterone, progesterone, DHEA, epinephrine, which is adrenaline, and norepinephrine, and mineralocorticoids. And there's also glucocorticoids. I should have added that to the slide. But mineralocorticoids, just the name tells us we need minerals to make them. And glucocorticoids are like your adrenaline, your fight or flight hormones. They need like blood sugar. So an important thing to keep your adrenal hormones balanced is to keep your blood sugar balanced. And I'll talk more about that like in the blood sugar talks. But that's just important to know that and kind of file that away. We're going to see something in that too. Okay, so under stress, physical stress, emotional stress, there again, we're going to make out those hormones. Has anyone ever been, this is kind of a good example because most people have experienced this, driving down the road and something darts in front of you and all of a sudden, whoa. So how quick does the body respond? So what's going to happen if you're on like either bioidentical hormones or synthetic hormones? They don't change, right? But your body changes on a dime. So I think it throws a monkey wrench into your body's own hormonal system. And not that the bioidenticals are bad. I just think we have to support and nourish the glands that make the hormones. So our body is in control and can change the levels of hormones at any given moment. The adrenals are part of that. So the fight or flight. So let's look at the fight or flight response just for a moment. So when you're in fight or flight, it's like you've got to survive, right? And so your body is going to make all the stress hormones. And at that point, those sex hormones are not going to be manufactured because I like to refer to them as luxury hormones. So we have to realize that the body is always trying to survive. And there's one time, like in pregnancy, has everyone had a baby here or know someone who has had a baby? Okay. We all fall into that category. We all know. So during pregnancy, we know that the mom, or we've heard that the mom gives up all the nutrition for the baby, right? Mom's body gives up everything. And actually, it's not true. There's one time, and there's probably others, but this is a biggie, when mom is under a lot of stress. Mom has to survive for the baby to survive, right? So the baby will offer up adrenal hormones if mom's adrenals are already spent. Because mom doesn't survive, baby doesn't survive. So we're seeing more and more children born with weaker adrenals because we're all so stressed. We don't breathe. You know, we put the pedal to the metal and, you know, heaven forbid we ever like take a breath. And so we're going. And we don't even recognize what that's doing to us biochemically. So we see more kids born with adrenal weaknesses than we've ever seen before. And asthma, allergies, that's all part of the picture of adrenal fatigue and adrenal weaknesses. So anyway, share that. So what's hypoadrenia? So hypo is low, like hypothyroid, low, hypoadrenal, low functioning of your adrenal glands. So it leads to adrenal fatigue. So stressors. So many people are in like constant, prolonged stress. And has anyone ever heard the analogy about the frog? You put the frog in cold water and you turn up the heat and it won't leave, it will die in there. But if you put the frog in hot water, it will jump out right away. So we don't even realize we're in the water that's gradually getting heated up. And it's killing us, and we don't even see it. We're not that much different than the frog in that sense. But anyway, so, constant and prolonged stress to the adrenals and even perceived stress. So then you can develop a state of adrenal fatigue. Now, I experienced this, and this was actually not too long ago. Those of you, maybe some of you have read my ebook, and if you have, you know a little bit of my story. My life looks great, and it is. I am so blessed. I have like this amazing husband and kids and grandkids, and it's awesome. But that is not always been that way. I grew up in a home when my parents just had their wounds, and my dad was a pretty angry man, and he just couldn't help that. And I've since grown to a place of love and forgiveness and understanding. I'm 51, my oldest is 33. A little quick math, not hard, right? I met my husband when she was 3, and we married when she was 8. So I put myself through undergrad with no help. So I've been there. I understand stress. I know what that does to the body physically, and I also know what it feels like to be on the other side. And that wasn't the end of the stress story. There were more later on in life, but I know what it feels like to be in a good place. And I believe those of you that have faith, I'm devout Catholic. Those of you that know me know I go to Mass every day. I'm all in. I love Jesus, love church, whole thing, right? All in, just all in. So, and I find so much peace, and that has saved my life, and it continues to bring me to a deeper space. So, I have learned through life how to cope and how to transform out of pain, and I believe I came up to a certain point several times in my life of pain, and I always kind of felt. I always felt God there, but didn't even know it was him when I was a little girl. But he was always constant and loving. And now I can look back and see, oh my gosh, the footprints in the sand, right? And I didn't even know it. And so now I'm in this place, or I'm in my chair in the office, and I'm able to be of service and have beyond sympathy. I have deep places of empathy and healing for individuals. And it was through those stressors that I grew. And now I can be here. I'm not just someone that's, everyone looks at, oh, her life's great. And I'm going to tell you, it is. It's amazing. But it wasn't by chance. And it wasn't just, dumb luck. There's a lot of perseverance and prayer and dedication and commitment that went into the creation of what I have. And Meredith has known me for a long time. You didn't even know when I first had that business in Carmel. I was stressed beyond measure there, and now I'm not, because I walked through a walk like all of you. We've all got our stories. No one gets through Earth unscathed. This is a battlefield here, in case you hadn't noticed. All right, it's not a planet based on love. Love is here, but we have to grab it. We have to go after it. So. Stressors. All right. So contributors to adrenal fatigue. You may see yourself here being a perfectionist. I'll just get all these up here. All right. So poor diet, especially if you eat sugar and flour, it's inflammatory. It's going to cause stress in the body. We're going to look at feeling of powerlessness. Now, let's say, well, I'll kind of go to I have a thing I'll share with you in a little bit, but chronic pain or illness, using a lot of caffeine. You're taking caffeine, and all of a sudden you've got to go to the bathroom because your body's like, get this out. And I'm not anti-caffeine. I already had my coffee this morning, and it was yummy. I loved it thoroughly. So good. Got me up, got me moving. However, I also recognize that's not good for me. All right? And so a little push with the pull, yin with the yang, right? I also had my smoothie with my kale in it this morning. So you just have to recognize and be aware. And I'm not a perfectionist with my diet, but we're pretty good. So I think we just had to keep it real and not beat ourselves up. So in constant anger is something. And when I do more of my spiritual emotional talks, anger. So what anger is, it's a wall. People will put up anger because underneath it there's a deeper pain. And anger repels people, right? Because who wants to be around an angry person? So when you're angry, it's just because there's a deeper underlying hurt, and someone is using that anger. Because if you see the real truth underneath, then you're going to think I'm weak. You're going to think I'm not lovable. You're going to think I'm not worthy. So I'm not going to show you that. I'm just going to go to anger. So when we see anger on someone, recognize it's just a wall to protect them from you seeing the truth underneath. And that's for one reason or another. It's a belief that they're just not good enough or worthy of love. And that really helped me to understand my dad more. Because his upbringing, sins of the father, third and the fourth generation, right? Just perpetuates and continues. So, that anger it was a wall, and it was a coping mechanism. All right, so signs. Fatigue upon waking. Anyone have the wake up in the morning and it's like, oh my gosh. When I was going through, when I had Joy Raphael, I was having a really hard time getting out of bed in the morning. I'm fine now. I'm not a morning person. Thank God my husband is. He's just like this amazing man, and he's German. That whole like mentality is they work and they're just so structured, which is wonderful because I'm more Irish and I just love everyone. Let's have a party, right? So it's all good. A little balance there. But I couldn't get up in the morning, so he would go and get me my coffee and put it on my nightstand. He's still on the weekends. He'll go to Starbucks, take the dogs, get me coffee, and bring it back. So it was so lovely. But I know what this feels like to not be able to get up in the morning and like, oh my gosh. Anyone crave salt? That's a sign of adrenal fatigue. You can pass that around. This is a great salt. You can get it from Whole Foods, Fresh Market, all of those places. But the mineral corticoids that your adrenals make, they need a lot of the minerals in that salt because they're the minerals that are in the seawater. And from a mineral perspective, our body fluids, the ratios of the minerals in our body fluids are almost identical to the ratio in seawater. So we have to have a salt that they've maintained the integrity of those ratios. And if you see that Celtic sea salt, it's kind of gray in color. It's got a little color to it. That's all the minerals in it. So if you crave salt, there's a reason. So that whole low salt diet, no salt, that's not good for us. What's bad is sodium by itself. And the salt that we buy at the regular table salt, they strip out those minerals and add aluminum to it so it doesn't cake. And then sodium by itself is not good because in nature we don't find sodium just by itself. That's the little doggy. She's wants to come play, but she can't. Lack of energy, obviously. Mild depression. Sometimes depression is just weak adrenals because you just don't have the energy to get it going. And the body goes to that feeling. Premenstrual syndrome, muscle fatigue. You you guys see, how about that lightheaded upon standing? Anyone ever get that? You squat down and all of a sudden, whoa. So why, what's going on biochemically? Well, if you're down, where's your blood? Down here, right? All of a sudden you stand up, blood's got to come up to your brain. So how's the blood going to get up there? Your adrenals release a hormone that will constrict the circulatory system to get the blood up to the brain. So if the adrenals are weak, it's like, oh, body just stood up and the adrenals are like, oh yeah, I got to get to work. That's what that is. So, and I used to get that all the time. And that's also with low blood sugar. But low blood sugar and adrenal issues are one and the same. If you've got a blood sugar issue, you've got an adrenal issue. If you have an adrenal issue, you have a thyroid issue. Kind of see the pattern there. All right. So blood sugar. So, okay, this normal blood sugar level we want, it's 100 milligrams per deciliter, something like that. So when we're in this normal range, all is well. When the blood sugar is too high, and it doesn't take much to get this blood sugar high, too many carbs. This is part of the reason we have a weight problem in this country. Because when that blood sugar shoots up, the body can't use all that blood sugar to function. When the blood sugar is in the normal range, this is perfect to keep all the cells working. It's a fuel. So everything is working fine here. So all of a sudden we get too much fuel. Well, too much blood sugar is inflammatory to the circulatory system. It can cause danger, inflammation, which is not good. The body says, hey, we got to survive. So the body's going to do everything it can to get this out of there. So what's it going to do? If the cells don't need more energy, we got extra, we can make some fat cells. So I have so many patients that will come to me and they want to lose weight and they're tired. So now mathematically, does that make sense? If you have extra fat cells, which are just stored sugar, stored energy, and you're tired. So you're walking around and you're tired, but you got energy. See, so there's more going on because our body, for some reason, isn't then taking that fat cells, those fat cells, and converting them to energy. And that's more in the detox talk. But now we just want to realize when that blood sugar is up, it's stressful in the body. And what are the stress glands? Adrenals. So they're going to be called into action here. And then when the blood sugar drops too far, that's when we're low sugar. And we get all that. Anyone ever have that hypoglycemia? That shakiness? It's because the cells are like, oh my gosh, I'm starving. They can't work. That's what's going on. And then all of a sudden you're ginseng through the cupboard for, who knows what is in there. I like to say, life is a bunch of 6-second decisions. I did not make that up. I heard that years ago, and I'm like, that's really cool. So 6-second decisions. You're at the grocery store. Oh, man, those ho-hos look good. 6 seconds, we put them back on the shelf or in the cart. We're just going to put them, or better yet, don't take them off the shelf, right? And then you walk by. You're at the broccoli there and the produce. 6-second decisions in the cart. Because from the cart to the kitchen, right? Whatever you put in the cart is going to be in your kitchen. So when you're having a moment and your blood sugar is low in the house, what are you going to eat? Well, I've got I think I just have bananas, which is against my blood type, so I won't have that. So I'm SOL. I'm going to have to find something, some produce because there's nothing in my house currently that's going to increase my blood sugar unless I bake some cookies or something. And you have to think twice about that one, right? Okay, so we need it to get a blood sugar just a little low to lose weight, though, and that's more in the weight loss talk. But when blood sugar comes down just a little bit, we'll lose weight. We just don't want it real low. They're too low where the cells are freaking out. Okay, so adrenals and the thyroid, we've talked a little bit about adrenals and thyroid, but here's what's kind of going on. So this is a thyroid cell. It makes and releases thyroid hormones. T4, T3, anyone ever heard of T4, T3, your thyroid hormones? The T is tyrosine, and 3 and 4 is the number of iodine. It's tyrosine, and 3 and 4 are the number of iodine molecules on tyrosine. So the body is going to make these hormones. 1, if the thyroid's working. 2, if you have enough iodine. Sometimes it's just an iodine deficiency. That was my problem, by the way. It was my weight issue was a thyroid issue, and we live in the goiter belt here, which means we don't have a lot of iodine in the soil or the produce. So anyway, thyroid hormones are made. And then cortisol and also estrogen, it's going to block the thyroid hormone from getting into the site. Now the thyroid hormone, when it gets into the site on a cell, what does thyroid hormone do? It tells the cell to make energy. That's what it does. That's why if we're low in thyroid hormone, the cells don't have enough energy. But what if we have something blocking it? So your blood labs can look okay, unless you look at the cortisol. If cortisol is heightened, I think under stress, it's going to block that. And why would it do that? Because cortisol is going to get the cell going, right? So you don't need 2 different hormones getting into the cell and getting it going. It's not healthy. You're going to bombard the cell. So an estrogen, elevated estrogen, a lot of women come to me, they're on the birth control pill, and they're fatigued. Well, estrogen blocks this thyroid hormone too. So, because estrogen is also excitatory. Estrogen, cortisol, they're both, and insulin, all 3 are fat storage hormones. Too much insulin, fat storage, too much estrogen, too much cortisol. We're going to store fat. Different tends to be stored in different places in the body, but it's all. All right, this is just kind of a nice example of a lab I did years ago when I used to do more saliva labs. This particular patient, we did a saliva sample on her at 8 in the morning, noon, 4, and then at midnight. So this bar right here is the healthy level where cortisol could be. Now this is a fibromyalgia patient, and she could not get up until like 11 or 12. She just could not do it. And this is why, because cortisol is supposed to wake you up. And she just couldn't function. So she was in, frank and very marked adrenal fatigue at that point. So she'd had lifelong stressors, and the fibromyalgia itself is stressful because it's pain in the body. So it took a while to get her turned around. She was adorable. She would call herself the cookie lady. I'm like, you cannot eat those cookies and get well because it's creating inflammation and blood sugar imbalances, all this stuff in the body, right? I said, we're not the cookie lady, we're the apple lady. All right, so here's blood testing. So sometimes our patients come to me and they're upset with their medical doctor because their medical doctor doesn't test them appropriately. Their medical doctor doesn't talk to them about nutrition and all this. And so that's not healthy for us. It's not healthy for me as a practitioner to say, yeah, they're wrong. It's not good. We don't want to give that power, because we're all created in his image and we're all worthy of love. And we're all doing the best we can do given our life experiences and our life circumstances. So they're not trained in nutrition and they're not trained in wellness. And that's okay. You know, they're really good at drugs and surgery, and we need that. And I think what we have to do is just kind of have a meeting of the minds and come together. And I'm hopeful that that's happening. So, you know, with a medical doctor, in their toolbox, in their little tool bag, what they don't have things to nourish the adrenals or the thyroid or to bring them back alive. And so the only testing they're going to be able to look for is for, you know, Addison's or Cushing's disease. So they're looking for a disease state. We have to recognize that too. And so let's say they don't find it. Well, that's good. You haven't gotten to the point that you're diseased. So that's good. It's like, great. All right. Makes my job easier and your job easier to, you know, get well if you're not to that point. So here's the testing that I do. It's EAV testing, where I look at different acupressure points. I've tested a few of you in here. The adrenal point is right here. Thyroid point is right here. I'm putting in 1.4 volts of electricity. Compare that to a 9-volt battery. It's really low. And we're measuring the output. And we have acupuncture points all over the body and meridians. This is Chinese medicine and acupuncture. It's over 5,000 years old. They found in Italy remains of skeletons where there was tattooing on the bones and what we know today as acupuncture points. So it's old. It's been around for a long time. It's been, you know, so anyway, we're just tapping into that with the EAV, and I'm using equipment to measure the resistance on those points, and we get a reading. So we're going to take a look at that. Right here, it's the adrenal point. This branch is called the triple warmer. A lot of points here. This is a breast point. This is secretions of the pancreas. Like if there's insulin or glucagon issues, I might look at that point. Here's your pituitary, hypothalamus, thyroid, lymphatics. So anyway, I can get a really nice picture of the entire body with this. There's liver, gallbladder, all kinds of points that I take a look at. Not sure. I guess I had to replace my ink cartridges. All right, so here's the screen that I work on. The readings are going to, you know, come up wherever they do. They're going to do whatever is, you know, representative of what's going on in the body. So a lower reading is where the body says, I'm not sending any energy there because I don't have enough to do whatever the fix is in that point. Because you have a certain amount of energy, the adrenals are weak, the energy is getting smaller. When the adrenals are strong and healthy and the body's healthy, you have more. We call it your vital force as a naturopath. I'll call it your vital force. My acupuncture friends will call it your chi. It's just your available energy. It's just how much energy your body has to keep your heart beating and just to work, right? So the higher the reading, the more energy the body's sending there. And so a higher reading is the body saying, I need to fix something here. This is important because it's choosing to send more of its vital force there. All right, so this homotoxicology, we can take this, turn it, and place it on that previous screen. These are the high readings. This is the middle, and these are the low readings. So the high readings, this is the excretion phase. Now when you're excreting, that's your body. Like if you have a cold, what's going on? You know, everything's coming out, right? So your body's trying to excrete something out. This is great. It's working. Let's say it can't just excrete something out. It has to add a little heat, working a little harder, you know, inflammation and so forth. But we get to the point where the body, it just says, I can't do it anymore. I don't have the energy to do that. Because your body knows what it put where. And so over time, the readings will get lower and lower. And then the lower, when I have a new patient, if I see a lot of low readings, it's okay. It's where you are, and it's fine. It's just going to take a little longer, and that's all right. Yeah, we've all got, you know, we got time. We're here. Is there a question? No. So this sheet I give to new patients. I can give it to you folks here today, too. It's just a listing of different symptoms. This is not exclusive, you know, an all-encompassing list of symptoms, but it gives you an idea. Excretion phase, the body's excreting things. applying heat, depositing, and then here the toxins have gotten inside the cell. So over prolonged stress, your body, it wants to get something out, but let's say there's too many stressors on the body. It can't get it out anymore. So eventually the toxins start going deeper and deeper into the system. And at that point, we have different diseases, like allergies and migraines are here. Here we have autoimmune, and here we tend to have some cancers. I'm just going to leave that down there because I don't know how to turn that off. I'll try one more time. So when I'm working with folks, we're going to eventually get some of these toxins out, and they're going to move over here. And all of a sudden, and I try and be really clear with patients now because I didn't used to, I think, be so clear in it. We may move back to the inflammatory stage and have sinus infection that we haven't had in a decade or two. And it's because what was down here, we got it to come out. So now we got to finish the job, natural support. So what would happen in the past when I wasn't as clear on this is I would have a patient come back for their follow-up in like a month or two because I get patients on a certain, we'll do things with their diet and certain remedies, and they need to do their thing, right? We can't, it's not immediate. So then they come back and I test them. And they'll say, oh yeah, I had a sinus infection. I went on an antibiotic. I'm like, no. Like, oh man, because what was here, we got it to this point. So that's why I just say, email me, let me know what's going on. So we can then support the body. We might need to do a homeopathic to help the body to drain more. Might need to do a natural antimicrobial, antibacterial. Might need to do a little echinacea or something to get it out and gone and not shove it back down because that's what the antibiotics do. Now, I'm not against antibiotics. If you're in the middle of a really bad bacterial infection, well, we're just going to have to go that route. But then let's get to it. Let's support the immune system. Let's support the bone marrow and the thymus so they can work so you're not in that constant, prolonged stress space. Because illnesses, I'm having all kinds of things popping up on my screen. Because illnesses are very stressful on the body. And if we don't address what toxins got deposited wherever, if we don't help the body to move that out, your autoimmune or your cancer or your rheumatoid arthritis, any of this, it's not going to go away. So we got to get it out, and then the body's not so stressed, and then you have your energy, which that's the topic today, because I'm tired, and why? So a lot of people are like, I'm tired, I just want something quick. And I'm like, well, there's a couple things I can do to help a little, but we can't rev up the motor too quick to get more energy when the body's got a clean house. We can do a little bit, but we have to recognize we got to find out why the fatigue is there and help support the body so it can take care of itself. We don't want to do just Lucy clean. Remember Lucy? I love Lucy. She's cleaning and she's putting things in the drawers and everywhere, and then you come and everything looks great. It's not what we're doing. We're going behind Lucy and we're cleaning out the drawers and we're cleaning it out. So then everything is nice and clean and the body works well and you have real energy. So, all right. So how do I get from fatigue to fabulous? Well, one, to have good energy, we have to feed our body. And, if you go, when you go to the produce section, doesn't it just feel good in there? It's got a good smell, especially at Whole Foods. It smells great. And I like the produce at Kroger and Meijer too. You walk in there, you can feel it. If you just tune in, feel what it feels like in that space. And there's a reason, because food has energy. And everything operates at a certain vibration. And we know in quantum science, in quantum chemistry, quantum physics, that energy will show up in one place and then it shows up in another place. So that's where we can eat something that's working in a high vitality or a high frequency, and it gets in our body, and it's going to raise the frequency of our body. So what's going to happen if you eat food that's kind of dead? Those of you, did you see the Happy Meal I used to have? No, okay. I got to get another one. I just haven't done it. I don't know. I had this Happy Meal for months and months, and I had one before that. I thought you might have seen that one, but and they've both gotten lost. It didn't mold, and I would pull it out at my talks. I'll have it at my next talk, okay? Because I'll go get one, and it will be like 3 or 4 weeks old, and you'll see it. But I would pull it out, and I say, yeah, here's the date I bought it. Here's the receipt, and it just dries up. It doesn't mold. There's no life in there. There's no vitality. The protons, neutrons, and electrons are moving really, really slow because it's not breaking down. So what happens with produce if you leave it sitting out for a while? You don't eat it. It gets slimy, it starts breaking down. It's because at the core, those protons, neutrons, and electrons, its energy, are moving fast. So are our bodies alive? Oh, I hope so. We're hoping to raise our vitality. So to do that, we have to bring food into our being that's working at a high frequency. So eating the right food is really important. You eat dead food or food, and nothing's really dead. And that's why like this whole, and I won't go on a tangent with immunizations, but to say that a virus is dead, I just think that's impossible, because everything is working at the core. You know, the protons, neutrons, and electrons are moving. Even in here, in this little, this piece of furniture here, this pedestal, it's moving. Something's moving in there. It's just moving slower. So it's going to have an impact. But anyway, we have to eat food that's life-giving, and eat food that spoils. That's a good rule of thumb. Eat food that remembers where it came from, like the apple knew the tree, right? That ho-ho, that Twinkie, no idea where it came from. So eat food that knows where it came from. That's a real good. All right, and good fats are good. We talked a little bit about, remember cholesterol? We have to have good fats in our body so we can make the hormones. Hormones are fatty type substances. So what's going to happen if we eat Crisco or the hydrogenated fats? It's going to create inflammation. And two, those type of fats, they have a 57-day half-life, which means you eat that today, that inflammation, pain-causing fat, in 57 days, half of it's still there, because the body just can't get it out. So one thing, we've got to get rid of all those fried fats, and the hydrogenated, it's not good. But these fats, we need some of them. They're life-giving fats. So it's really important to have the anti-inflammatory fats so you can make the right levels of hormones, and you're not creating inflammation and pain, which is going to stress your adrenal glands out, and then you're not going to have the energy that you want. All right, so there's lots to do. There's lots of options with herbs and vitamins and homeopathics. I think you just need professional guidance. Me, someone else, it doesn't really matter. You just, find someone that you like and you're comfortable with, because there's a lot. You can go to the vitamin section in any health food store, and it's a little confusing, to say the least, a little daunting. So just get someone that you feel comfortable with. So here are just some basic nutritionals that I do for folks with adrenal issues. Adrenal, this particular remedy, it's from Standard Process. It saved my life when I was going through a lot of stress. It helps adrenals to rebuild. That particular company has something called a protomorphogen, which helps the cells make healthy new cells. And a lot of the nutrients are in there for that. So I love Adrenal. Adrenal Life Force. This one's also pretty cool. This is a newer remedy. Well, not newer, but it's a physical. I didn't used to use it as much, but I'm on that one now. And it also has an herbal combination in there for the adrenals, and it's got a little thyroid support, which is kind of cool. So, but I test folks. I see which one they need. Yeah. Methyl B12. Sometimes we can't methylate properly, which means, anyone familiar with the whole Krebs cycle, how the body makes energy inside of the cells? Well, sometimes that's defunct. And so we need that. This methyl B12, it's a spray, which B12 is a little difficult to absorb, especially for blood type A's, because we just don't make, it's called intrinsic factor, to absorb it well. So we have a hard time. Because I'm an A, so I say that. Liquor, it's a licorice, intrinsic liquor. Licorice is really good and helpful for the adrenals, but not if you have high blood pressure, then we have to go a little different route there. Cataplex B, it's B vitamins. Cellular Vitality, it's B vitamins, but it also has, these are both Standard Process. It also has a little cleansing support for liver and kidneys. And thyroid support, this Thytrophin, I put a lot of folks on that. If I go without that for a few weeks, I start getting that. Like my fatigue when I was in my 30s, and you saw that picture there, I would get up in the morning, have things I wanted to do, so I could still wake up in the morning at that point. But then come like 10 o'clock, and mind you, I had 3 children at this point. I had a lot going on. And Christopher was a baby and then a little toddler. So I'd wake up, get things going, get the girls off to school, and then boom, brick wall. And it's like, I had to take a nap. I could not function. That's thyroid. That's more thyroid weakness versus the adrenal fatigue, which is just, it feels different. You don't necessarily hit that wall where you're out of steam. You're just like really tired. So that kind of came later. But there again, if you have an adrenal problem, you have a thyroid problem, and vice versa. So you have both. Okay, some lifestyle tips. Appropriate exercise. And appropriate is the key word here. And for one, our blood type will dictate what type of exercise that we should do. Blood type O's need more vigorous exercise. Blood type A's, we do better with more like a mind body, because we don't deal with stress well. So appropriate. Also, look at the quality of your sleep. You get good sleep, you can have more strenuous exercise. Poor sleep, lighter exercise. Because there again, we don't want to stress the body out. And if the body doesn't have that good sleep, you don't wake up restored, and you wake up a little behind the 8 ball, which is stressful for your adrenals. So you can pair your sleep and your exercise together. Restorative sleep, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So when you release optimal levels of human growth hormone. So night owls, beware, not good. If you're staying up late, you will not have healthy adrenals or optimally healthy body, because you're not releasing the hormone necessary to repair. So 10 to 2 is when the physical body restores, and then 2 to 6 is when your emotional body restores. And there's your 8 hours. So 10 to 2. I used to be a night owl, so I get that. It's so tempting, and I still get that. I'll get that. Anyone get that second wind, that second burst of energy in the evening? Yeah, I still get that. Fortunately, my husband, he goes to bed. He's so amazing, which, note to self, he's in bed, go to bed, Carolyn, which is good. But that second wind of energy, that second burst, that's a burst of cortisol in the evening. And remember, cortisol is supposed to be up in the morning and gradually come down. So we don't want to encourage that. We want to go to bed or take the steps necessary to get to sleep. Balance your blood sugar. Blood type diet. Those of you that know me, I'm big on this. I've been using it now for almost 10 years. I didn't use it as much with my patients early on, but what I would observe is my patients that were on it did better. So now it's like on your first day, we find out what your blood type is, and I'd send you to Barnes & Nobles or Amazon to get the book, because it works. It's like a slam dunk. And a healthy frame of mind. So this brings us to the Institute of Heart Math. They do some really cool work on emotions, and it's really neat. Well, anyway, what they found, one of the many things they find, they do a lot of research, is that different emotions, I just listed a few, actually changes the DNA in our cells. So, and it's getting passed on from generation to generation. So where do we want to give power? Or where do we not want to give power? So I'm going to go over to this slide. So treasure the energy that you have for today. So if you're in stress, you're not in alignment with what you want, because that moment of stress, who wants stress? So we have to get out of that, and that's up to us. And I have some tips for that. Living in the past, if you're running the tape from what happened in the past, holding you back from where you're going, because whatever happened yesterday is done, right? But right now is what's happening, and it's always a bunch of right now moments. So be present, and focus on the person in front of you. Focus on what's going on right now, and make it the best you can. And don't go back to the past. And we don't want to go too much in the future. We want to plan, but don't put the energy there. Yeah. So I want to get up to this. Okay. So here's some tips on that. So talk yourself up. Now, let's say, Meredith, you just got out of bed, and I'm standing here staring at you. You didn't get enough sleep. You're ugly. You're a loser. I don't like you. Nobody likes you. Eventually, she's going to say, Carolyn, get the heck out of here. But if I'm here saying, oh, my gosh, you're amazing. I love what you did yesterday. You're so kind to that person. You're like the most kind, loving person in the world. You are really smart. You're going to do great things today. Before you know it, I'm invited over for Christmas dinner, right? I mean, seriously. So what are you saying to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? Be your own BFF. Be your own best friend. And when you catch yourself doing that negative talk, rubber band, whatever it is, change that. And little by little, the voice will start to change. And I think sometimes realize, like that little example, the way we talk to ourselves, we would not have a friend in our life. That we wouldn't allow someone else to do that. So why do we do it to ourselves? We don't want to do it to ourselves. Okay, visualizing something that makes you happy. That can be very helpful. The LIVE method, that's an emotional technique that I use with my patients. I created LIVE as an acronym for Love is Victorious Everywhere. It's basically a forgiveness modality. Oh my gosh, I'm out of time. Affirmations are good, and that's the programming. We want to program that self-conscious. Prayer. Now, prayer has saved my life. And like I said, those of you that know me, I go to Mass every day, and now I go hang out in the chapel after Mass, and it's just totally, choosing to do that has transformed my life and my family. So, God will meet you where you are. Meditation is great. And sometimes meditation is just, focusing on something that makes you happy. It doesn't have to be this whole big, it doesn't have to be that. It's just, getting to that space where you can be, you can feel relaxed, you can feel calm. And sometimes what you can do is just like one little scripture or one little affirmation, something, and just focus on that and let it go. Sit there with it and see where it takes you. And if your mind goes away, it's okay. Just say, come on back, we're over here. And it's all right. All right. To say I love you, that has power. How does it feel if someone says they love you? It's great. So maybe say it to yourself or in your mind to somebody else, because that shifts your vibration from the anger, resentment, or not good enough to a place of love. So just saying those 3 words. And this one is also really powerful. I am love. Now, I am, and this goes, I'm going to go back to Moses on the mountain, right? So he said, so God, what's your name? My people want to know what your name is. And what did God say? I am who I am. So when we say I am, and back in the Jewish tradition, that's sacred. They will rarely say I am, because they recognize the sacredness of I am, because it's God's name. So if you go I am and then love, God is also love. So you're saying I am love. So on one level, your cells are like, that's right, I remember I am love, because we're creating His image, right? So your body's like, yeah, it's good, I like it, it's good. Say, and I've been driving down the road, and I don't have to do this anymore. I'm in a much better place, but this would, sometimes someone would cut me off, and people can be kind of mean when they're driving. Can't they? I went through a phase when I had more mean drivers around me, but I also recognized I was asking for the grace of humility, and it will bring you to a place of humility because you have to learn how to love them too. It's like, oh, okay. So anyway, but I would go to I am love, and then my body would calm, because 1, your cells are saying, yeah, that's right, and 2, you're saying God, and He's like, okay, gotcha, I'm here. He's not going to ignore you. So, I am love. And then, all of our places of worship have outlets where we can be in touch there. Okay, so our next talk, October 25th, I thought this was appropriate on Candida and yeast, because it's right before Halloween. We're going our sugar craze. So, and then kind of, live healthy, live happy, live holy, and live. So I'm going to open it up to any questions. I went over, I feel it was a lot of material, but I tried to not make it overwhelming. So any questions that I can pick my brain here? I had my coffee, so it's working. All right. Well, I'm going to be around. Sometimes people like to ask me individually, and I totally appreciate and respect that. So I'm gonna be around here today. Well, I want to thank all of you ladies for coming. This is in my opinion, it's kind of a great Saturday morning. It's always a heartfelt group that shows up, and it tends to change every month. Or I'll have a few people, because our schedules are busy, and so I really appreciate you coming, and I hope the information was valuable to you and you learned something.